Games we've already featured as well on this broadcast, all kind of coming to the forefront here. And if we take a look at the teams, Benjie's team is making me so happy because first of all, there is a Regieleki, and we all know how much I love that Pokemon, but there is also the Spectria and the Glastria there. So some of those new Pokemon from the Crown Tundra able to be showcased here in Players Cup 2. On the other side though, Jean-Paul Lopez has, again, a Regieleki. There's the Galarian Moltres that I know you'll be happy to see as well, Lee, but also a Nulla Spectria. You know, in the region finals, it was all about Glastria. That was the Pokemon choice out of those two options that everybody was opting to bring. But now we have got Spectria versus Spectria, and I'm really looking forward to being able to showcase this Pokemon a little bit more.
Yeah, you know, it's a very interesting Pokemon. Both players as well identifying that you need that redirection support to allow it to function as well as possible, where Jean-Paul is relying heavily on the Amoonguss and Benjie is relying on that Clefairy for the follow me redirection there. Be interesting to see if we see either player kind of lead out with that combination of Pokemon. The problem is if you're Jean-Paul, I think identifying that the Urshifu and Benjie's team can be quite a difficult Pokemon to bring the Spectra in and make the most of it, you know. It's then that's where then you've got the Galarian Moltres from Jean-Paul that could come in and do some work, you know, pairing up nicely with the Regieleki to help with speed control against some of the other threats there that you're going to see and do a lot of work. But then obviously it's a bit back and forth, and with how Benjie plays as well, Benjie plays a very offensive game most of the time, and how we've seen him play in this tournament so far as well. So it's not going to be easy for Jean-Paul to set up the board positions that he's kind of desiring, and he has to be able to try and contain some of that offensive pressure that Benjie is known for.
Exactly, and if we take a look at their achievements as well, it allows us to get to know our players a little bit better too. Benjie here in the 2020 seasons had a phenomenal run, you know, becoming a finalist twice, once at Dallas and once at Portland Regional. So he's going to be looking to try and get that sort of champion title to add to his accolades here. He's also got that top 8 finish at Collinsville Regional too. So, you know, really looking to try and get through that top 8 into finals and maybe even take that champion title.
Yeah, and then we move over to the other side and look at the accomplishments of Jean-Paul, and I mean, there's nothing to dismiss at all. That top 8 finish in the Latin America International Championships this year, you know, 2020, so it's very recent as well, and all of his other really good accomplishments coming in 2019 close behind that. So you've got the world's top 32 finish there, another international finish there of top 4 this time, the North American Internationals, and the Latin America International top 8 in 2018. So, you know, the thing is, they're all huge tournaments here for Jean-Paul Lopez, where he's had these very good finishes. So that will be a great experience again, like I always say, going into this. But Benjie with that finalist, regional finalist placement as well twice, you know, huge things for him to kind of have that experience and bring this into the tournament as well and take advantage of. So, you know, this is going to be a very good match. We've already identified a few things on the teams that can be very difficult for the opposing player to contend with. I can't wait to get into it, Lou. So I don't know if you're ready, but we can jump straight into it if you I can't wait.
Yeah, let's get into that game one. I want to see exactly what's going to happen with these Regielekis, but unfortunately not going to be seeing any coming out on one side of the field. But then again, still no Regieleki. They might be in the back though, Lee, as well with that Galarian Moltres. We'll have to find out, but it's going to be the Urshifu and the Glastria there for Benjie, and for Jean-Paul Lopez we have got the Amoonguss and the Incineroar. So Jean-Paul leading out with 2 very disruptive Pokemon. We've got an Intimidate user there that's going to be very beneficial for him against both these physical attackers. Having access to Fake Out as well can cause a bit of disruption, and Amoonguss, of course, we all know that it can Rage Powder moves away and also put Pokemon to sleep with Spore.
Yeah, that sleep threat there straight away from Jean-Paul, especially with the fake out support, is quite something that makes Benjie have to think about what he does in this turn. As we're getting straight into it, both players not hanging around, Lou.
No, the Fake Out going straight down into that Urshifu, and Amoonguss, we don't often see it moving before another Pokemon, but you know, the speed of that Glastria is so slow. It's able to get the edge on it and go for that Spore into the Urshifu, putting it to sleep. But the Glastria able to survive, you know, being targeted by either of these Pokemon, going for that Swords Dance. Again, not something we commonly see on the Glastria, but it does have to be careful. If that Amoonguss is able to outspeed it, it could very well be the next Pokemon to go to sleep.
This is the problem here, you know, the Amoonguss has already been shown to be faster than it, and with the Urshifu out of action here from that combination of Fake Out and Spore, not really able to do anything. So you may think that Benjie needs to kind of reposition his board, maybe get something like the Clefairy on the field to try and support the Glastria before it is put to sleep by that Amoonguss.
Well, Jean-Paul really targeting down the Urshifu, going for the parting shot into it as well to lower its attack, and while it's sleeping as well, obviously this is going to be unable to move at this occasion, and Moltres is going to be able to come in. It's just preserving the Pokemon on John Paul's side that little bit more. Amoonguss is, of course, going to outspeed that Glastrier, going to be putting it to sleep as well. So Benjie's Pokemon having a bit of a slow start to this game one, but what a reveal is this? It's going to be the berry, I think it's the Lumberry there, waking it up. It's going for another Swords Dance. This Moltres and the Amoonguss must be terrified of the Ice-type moves, Lee.
That's +4 that the Glastrier is on there now. You know, Benjie had a great opportunity, knowing that he had that Lumberry there, to really take advantage of that turn and maybe go for the knockout onto the Amoonguss with one of those ice-type attacks that we commonly see on Glastrier and what it's known for. But opting to go for another Swords Dance here, get set up even further and become an even bigger threat. No player either at this point going for their Dynamax, so that's still in the bag for both sides of the field. And you can think right now that Benjie is trying to set this Glastrier up to get and be that Dynamax Pokemon for him. Jean Paul, on the other hand, has got the Moltres on the field, has got the opportunity to start doing some good damage to things like Urshifu now with the Max Airstreams, and also, you know, with the redirection support from the Amoonguss in a position now where it's able to stop maybe just redirecting that damage from the Glastrier and doing some good damage in return to the Glastrier and start wearing that down because of the threat that it is after those Sword Stances.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, the Glastrier has eaten its berry now. It's not going to be able to survive another one of those spores. It's going to have to go to sleep if it connects in. But the Urshifu is able to wake up and go for that Wicked Blow, targeting down into the Amoonguss. Does a huge amount of damage, obviously with that critical hit from Wicked Blow, but not enough to pick up the KO, as Moltres can fire off a Max Airstream in retaliation. Going to be able to get the solid KO there against the Urshifu and remove it from the field. Poor Urshifu is certainly having a very hard time in this match, constantly being targeted down by Jean Paul's Pokemon. And Moltres gives Jean Paul's side of the field a boost of speed as well. The Glastrier is going to be put to sleep by that Amoonguss as well, particularly now it is that little bit speedier with +1 speed. But the thing is, while the Glastrier is able to stay on the field, it can always wake up and go for a very, very powerful +4 boosted move.
Yeah, that's the thing, and now you can't really ignore it, even though it is asleep. I think it's time to really kind of make that your priority here going forward. Make sure you can get as much damage onto it now while it's not Dynamaxed as possible, because once it does Dynamax, it obviously gets a bit more of a defensive bulk, and it is a lot harder to take down. We do see the Regieleki hit the field now, which is going to threaten the Moltres on Jean Paul's side of the field, especially if that is the option that, you know, Benjie has the option here to Dynamax it if he wants to. But the thing is, the redirection still on play from the Amoonguss. I think the first thing that you want to do if you are Benjie is get rid of that redirection, get rid of that spore threat from the Amoonguss. Once that's gone, things kind of gets a little bit simpler, but it's all in hope that you can get your Glastrier through these turns before it wakes up and then really utilize the Sword Stance that you've invested earlier on in this game.
That's the thing, Amoonguss doesn't usually mind coming down against an electric type Pokemon, but at such low HP, it's good to be able to bring it back into its Pokeball, activate its Regenerator ability so it can come back onto the battlefield with a little bit more HP and provide that crucial support later on in the game. Benjie, however, is indeed going to go for that Dynamax. Going to be, I think, getting the Glastrier up into nice Dynamax form. And you know, this is the interesting thing as well about having that +4, because one thing if you're Benjie you've got to be worried about when going down against the Galarian Moltres is accidentally activating that weakness policy and the Berserk ability. But if you can pick up a solid one-hit KO even in Dynamax form by being +4, that could be a very set strategy for you to go for. Incineroar having to take a good chunk of damage from this Regieleki, but Moltres able to fire off a Max Airstream in retaliation. Going to go into that Glastrier though, however, is going to take it very well, especially in its Dynamax form. But the speed once again being set up on Jean Paul's side of the field, and Incineroar going to be able to get that speed boost as well, having joined the action.
Yeah, and the Intimidate really useful onto the Glastrier, putting it down to only just +3 now, Lou. Or +2, sorry, because of the initial Intimidate that we saw there. So, but still a huge threat. And I think the big thing here is that the Moltres, without that weakness policy boost, it's just not getting the damage that it needs onto the Glastrier. Benjie making the right call there, Dynamaxing the Glastrier and making sure that whatever damage he is going to take through these sleep turns is really minimal.
Yeah, the Moltres here now going to go for that Max Darkness into the Glastrier. Going to just do a little bit more chip damage, but reduce the special defense of both of Benjie's Pokemon. And, you know, really good spot there as well, Lee, with those 2 Indemnidates. I completely forgot about those. It's now only at +2, but still, that's going to be formidable if you can connect into that Moltres. But Regieleki is going to do the dangerous thing. You know, does a big amount of damage, but is going to be able to activate that weakness policy and the Berserk ability as well, as the Electric type move did just over 50% damage. Incineroar, however, going to target down into that Glastrier Glastria with another passing shot. So this Incineroar being really critical on the field at the moment. You know, Jean-Paul knows he needs to utilize it for that Intimidate ability to apply pressure to that Glastria, you know, reducing those Sword Stance boosts and also being able to apply pressure with the fire type moves later on in the game. And you want to maybe utilize that when Glastria is not in its Dynamax form and has less HP to contend with. It also allows him to now bring in this Landorus and fire off another Intimidate. I believe putting Glastria now at only +1.
It might be down to just neutral now after the parting shot there that we just saw into the Glastria. So it does actually wake up, but going to be more than enough probably to pick up the knockout still onto this Moltres. And then it's going to get that Chilling Neigh boost, which we've already seen in previous games featuring the Glastria, how powerful this ability can be. And now the snowball really starts, especially with the Moltres gone and off the field after those boosters just received as well. Really not being able to take advantage of that. So a really critical time for the Glastria to wake up and be able to remove a threat like that from the field.
Yeah, Benjie's going to breathe a sigh of relief there, making sure that the Moltres, like you said, with all of those boosts, has been removed and now can continue to apply pressure to this Landorus. You know, Regieleki isn't going to be able to do much against it being an electric type and predominantly only has access to those electric type moves, but having ice type moves on that Glastria is certainly going to come in handy against both an Amoonguss and a Landorus. So it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, who the Glastria is going to be able to target down. Amoonguss could go for that redirection here as well, just to protect that Landorus a little bit.
Yeah, maybe if you are Benjie, you sacrifice your Regieleki if it has got something like the Electro Web, just to slow down that Amoonguss to make sure that you are able to outspeed it and pick up the knockout the next turn. Whether he's got the Electro Web or not is another thing, because that would be an option for him to avoid any Spore threat going forward.
Amoonguss able to hang on, though, from the damage taken by the Regieleki, as Landorus decides to go for a Sword Stance of its very own here. So lots of Sword Stance shenanigans going on across both sides of the field. Amoonguss going to go down into the Glastria, but it is going to be able to protect itself. I believe that was a Spore coming out, which would make a lot of sense. You want to put that Glastria right back to sleep and protect both these Pokemon from any of those Ice-type moves.
Yeah, and now the problem lies that Regieleki's already got that initial damage off onto the Amoonguss to put it in range for a Thunderbolt now, which protects it from the Glacier from being put to sleep. But at the same time, the Landorus really taking advantage of this brilliant board position that Jean-Paul set up and getting a Swords Dance of his own up now without any kind of hindrance of an Intimidate from the other side of the field, from Benjie's end, and in a position to potentially just Earthquake here. You know the Amoonguss has to be targeted from the Regieleki to prevent the sleep, so you can just Earthquake and probably take both targets on Benjie's side of the field down.
Well, just going to be protect there from the Regieleki. Doesn't want to take any damage from this Landorus. Amoonguss as well going to be protecting in case something like an Earthquake is going to come out from the Landorus. Going to connect onto both of those protects. So indeed going to be you know, going for a big same type of tap bonus move here. Going to target down into that Glastria, and it is enough to pick up the KO. So Jean-Paul able to protect himself from taking any more damage from that Glastria. That threat has now been removed from the field, and it's, you know, had quite a formidable run, that Glastria here at the moment. You know, coming out in that sort of turn one, getting up both those Swords Dance boosts. It certainly had a lot to play with. Amoonguss able to hang on as well with the hail.
Yeah, and just showing really Amoonguss how useful it's been in this match for Jean-Paul to really disrupt Benjie's kind of offensive strategy here, you know, with the Spore and then the intertwining Intimidates that we've seen between the Landorus and the Incineroar, and then to pull out the Sword Stance right there with the Landorus and put himself in an absolutely amazing position now where he can probably just Rock Slide. It'd be enough to get the Regieleki at this point. He's still got the redirection to pull in any threatening attacks as well on his Amoonguss, and he's also got the option to potentially switch that Amoonguss out if he wants now, get that Regenerator activated again and get Incineroar back on the field with access to that Fake Out.
Well, Amoonguss just going to go for a Rage Powder here. No longer has a speed advantage upon any of the Pokemon, so just wants to protect that Landorus going forward. And it will be KO'd from the Regieleki there. Regieleki's been trying to get that KO all game and finally manages to accomplish it. Landorus going to go for a Rock Slide, going to connect on both the opposing Pokemon. And
wow.
those HP bars shot right down. Picks up a very solid double KO there, Lee. Wow, go Landorus.
Wow, yeah, just showing why it is that #1 used Pokemon in this tournament so far, Lou. Yeah, really making a big impact here.
Well, let's jump into game 2 and see what Pokemon action will occur. Whether the Landorus will be, still hyped up from that amazing end to game 1 and be able to do some destruction on the battlefield. But it's going to be the same leads coming out here for Jean-Paul with the Amoonguss and the Incineroar. And I believe it is the same as well for Benjie with that Urshifu and the Glastrier. Both of them going to be taking this Intimidate. So Incineroar well placed to apply its ability at a critical position here. And, last time we saw the Amoonguss really sort of playing around the fact that it could outspeed that Glastrier and start putting a few things to sleep.
Yeah, and that is the problem, I think. The Amoonguss being able to outspeed the Glastrier and able to take that critical hit wicked blow, which is the other thing, how well it's been trained, makes it so difficult to deal with here. And it's just the constant threat that you've got from that Spore. It does leave the Glastrier a little bit of room to maybe start getting damage off this time, rather than concentrating down on those Sword Stances like we saw in the previous game.
Well, possibly, but not to be. The Glastrier wants to make sure that it at least has a neutral or positive attack stat here, putting itself up to +1. Maybe won't see that second one come into effect. We already know that it's got that Lumberry on there, so if Amoonguss wants to target it down with another Spore, instead of just putting it in that same position the next turn, this could be the opportunity for that Glastrier to go for some big damage, knowing that it can survive one Spore and wake up. Yeah,
it's still, like you say, Lou, it's really critical that he takes advantage of that Lumberry, because he didn't really take advantage of it in that first game. We saw him go for a second Sword Stance, and that was the turn when maybe you think, okay, if you'd maxed there, maybe gone for the max Hailstorm, you can remove the Amoonguss from the field, and then that threat, that redirection support, the Spore support that has been such a hindrance to you, is removed from the field. And you're able as well, if you can pick the knockup out, you're going to be able to access those chilling nays, and it becomes a lot harder of a job for something like Landorus to come on the field at that point as well.
I really like this adjustment by Benjie as well, bringing the Clefairy here into the action. Incineroar going to be able to target down both these opposing Pokemon here as Amoonguss goes for a Spore, but we know that the Glastrier is going to be able to wake up. And this is why I love the Clefairy switching in here. It's going to be able to have that Friend Guard ability to provide that support, and then can redirect away the Spore on the next turn, leaving Glastrier free to get off 2 max moves guaranteed. It goes for the GMAT Hailstorm into that Incineroar, so not going to be able to deal super effective damage by any means, but sets up the Hail, gets that little bit of residual chip, and also could have potentially caught the Landorus potentially switching in at this stage. I think was it potentially a Burning Jealousy from that Incineroar?
I'm not 100% sure, Lou, with that one, but yeah, I think you're very right with trying to catch the Landorus switch in there, predicting maybe a potential parting shot coming out from the Incineroar there, and repositioning with the Landorus to get that double Intimidate onto the board. But I feel again that you're missing the opportunity to really get rid of one of the big threatening Pokemon in Amoonguss here, because that is the threat, that is the thing that's going to start putting your team in a very awkward position and putting it to sleep. So being able to get the Clefairy is very useful for Benjie. He can kind of dodge that Spore this next turn, and he's going to be able to utilize that and try and take it down maybe this turn coming up.
Well, Clefairy doing what it does best and going for that follow me. Incineroar going to get in and out of there though, going for that parting shot. And Clefairy, such a great partner Pokemon to have here as a supporting role. It doesn't mind taking these parting shots. It is not known as a, predominantly physical attacker. It's there for all of the support that it needs to have. So taking that away so that the Glastrier can remain protected and not have to take that parting shot is going to be critical. The Landorus, however, going to be able to jump in and have something to say about that attack stat with the Intimidate. And I believe it's bringing it right back down to neutral, but I'm sure Lee will correct me if I am wrong. It's going to be a Spore coming out though from the Amoonguss targeting down the Clefairy. So the Glastrier no longer has the utility to be able to redirect moves away, but it is able to go for that Ice type move once again, this time catching the Landorus on the switch in, and will be able to remove it from play. But yes, Landorus is gone, but that Amoonguss is still there. It can easily go for Spore on this next turn, and particularly as Chilling Neigh has activated. The Glastrier, I believe, is now at +1. Then that's going to be something that Jean-Paul really wants to target down with that Spore.
Yeah, I think that's the priority going into this next turn, and now being able to kind of put the Clefairy to sleep. This is the thing from the previous turn. It's yeah, you can put the Clefairy to sleep, but you really want to be taking the opportunity to put the Glastrier, the Glastrier needs to be taking the opportunity to get rid of the Amoonguss while it can. Yeah, all very nice getting rid of the Landorus whilst you can, but the disruptive Pokemon on the opposite side of the field for Benjie is that Amoonguss, and you've got to be scared of potentially a Protect or a Switch out there. So you can understand why he's going into the slot that he's been dedicating these max hailstorms over and over again. But the problem is now that the spore threat is still on the field, and it's a big threat now to shut down the Glastrier and really mitigate any advantage that he's got at this present time.
Well, Benjie making up a switch, takes Clefairy off the field while allowing the Glastrier to max guard as well. Just going to stop any spores from occurring here. Moltres capitalizes on this though and goes for that nasty plot. So going to boost up its special attack by 2 stages and make itself incredibly formidable here. Of course, Jean-Paul still has access to his Dynamax as well, and I wouldn't be surprised to see his Pokemon of choice being that Galarian Moltres later on in this game.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the Galarian Moltres did so much work in game 1 for him. It was such a good utility for him here. It wouldn't be any surprise to see him use it again now. And the Amoonguss on the field now is a little bit threatened. You know, Benjie's made a really good play of getting the Rotom Heat onto the field. Now that does threaten the knockout onto Amoonguss here, and it does make Jean-Paul have to think twice about going for that Spore into the Glastrier slot in case of a knockout. The other thing he needs to consider as well is a potential nasty plot play here from Benjie. We've seen how much he relies on these setup moves, so it's not something you can really underestimate going into this next turn.
Yeah, I like this turn here by Benjie, you know, trying to maybe waste one of the turns of Amoonguss, going for that Spore into the Glastrier, which looks, you know, such a prime opportunity for Jean-Paul to capitalise on. Bringing in the Clefairy that's already asleep, you know, it doesn't mind taking that, allowing the Rotom to maybe try and target down, either remove the Rotom from play or try and do some damage to this Moltres. But the fact that it's in its Dynamax with the HP stat as well, you don't want to be activating that weakness policy too. Moltres is going to go for that Max Darkness, however, going to connect down onto the Rotom, not going to be able to pick up the KO though, able to survive on 14 HP, but it's certainly at a really precarious situation. We've got to remember as well the hail is on the field too. Thankfully though, Rotom does have a little citrus berry to snack on, be able to regain some HP here, you know, putting itself out of that hail range. As it goes for the overheat, going to target down into the Amoonguss. Is it enough to remove it from play? Yes, it is. So Benjie now doesn't have to worry about the Amoonguss putting that Glastrier to sleep upon its re-entry to the game later on.
Yeah, and you can see how useful that Friend Guard ability is from the Clefairy here. Even though the Clefairy is still asleep, its Friend Guard ability is still active when it was brought onto the field, and just enough to allow the Rotom there to be able to survive that Max Darkness and allow it the ability to take down the Amoonguss. Finally, that threat from Jean-Paul's side of the field is removed, but the next thing that Benjie has to worry about is obviously trying to get through these next few Dynamax turns with his Rotom and Clefairy that are still sitting on the field, and Clefairy not in the greatest position, still asleep at the moment.
Yeah, if you're Benjie, you really do need that Clefairy to wake up. And again, I think it's a really good mention there by Yuli about having that Friend Guard ability, because Benjie, you could have kept the Glastrier on and, you know, tried to pick up the KO against that Amoonguss with the overheat, but Rotom would never have been able to survive that Max Darkness with that Clefairy by its side. So a really great switch by Benjie, but he needs that Clefairy to go one step further and wake up. Rotom, however, is going to retreat, wants to get its stats reset from the drops, and Urshifu will rejoin the field. So Urshifu and Clefairy both sleeping. Clefairy is indeed going to stay asleep, leaving Incineroar able to go for that fake out. So Urshifu just going to be able to take that. Moltres, however, going to be the powerhouse here, going for that max airstream, goes into the Clefairy and absolutely removes it from play. And this is where things get really scary for Benjie, because the speed is now going to be increasing up on Jean-Paul's side of the field as well. That Moltres is just going to be able to do so much damage. You know, the Urshifu isn't going to be able to dodge out of the way of one of those max airstreams.
No, and unfortunately the thing is as well with the speed boost, it's boosting the speed on the Incineroar here now. The Urshifu is asleep, so it's not really going to be able to function very well. And if we do see the Glastrier come back onto the field, the double up from the Moltres and the Incineroar is an easy target, you know, into that Glastrier to make sure you remove that final threat from the field. And then from there, you can pretty much wrap things up with Moltres. He's put himself in a great position in this end game, making it very difficult for Benjie. But Benjie has got the offensive options to really damage this Moltres and Incineroar if he can get through the sleep turn with Urshifu, and he can maybe protect this Glastrier for just one more turn.
That's the thing, if you're able to take out the Moltres, it puts you in a really phenomenal position here. And, you know, Rotom, if potentially he's able to get some kind of nasty plot boost up, then can deal some good damage outside of the Dynamax, that could be the way to try and get through it. But I don't think Jean-Paul's going to give him the opportunity to be able to do that, going for another Max Darkness here, going down, taking it down to 20 HP on that Glastrier. It is going to be able to survive, but I'm sure it's not going to be around for long, particularly if that Incineroar has something to say about it. Urshifu as well, still sleeping, not going to be able to deal any damage to that opposing Incineroar or the Moltres, and it looks like the Burning Jealousy coming out here and picking up the KO against the Glastria. So removes it from play and does some damage to that Urshifu as well. But as long as Urshifu is sleeping, that Moltres is going to be so formidable to deal with.
Yeah, and a really good, move there to make sure that you the option of burning jealousy, you mentioned it earlier, Lou, and I think that just having that spread damage to make sure that you're not having to really dedicate it into one slot covers both Pokemon with decent damage and doing enough to get rid of the Glastria. And really Moltres' return here from when it's Dynamax and utilizing those 3 turns has been phenomenal, in an incredible position now to take down either the Rotom or the Urshifu if it chooses to, but it could just go for that Fury Wrath and just take down the Rotom, make sure to get rid of that, and then utilize Incineroar to deal with the Urshifu that's left still sleeping on the field.
Exactly. Moltres, however, going to fall into the Protect there of the Rotom, but the Urshifu not going to be able to dodge out of the way. The Fiery Wrath is going to be able to survive those and not being super effective. It's going to be the Dark type move coming out, no Flying type moves, and finally being able to wake up, going for that close combat into the Moltres. That's something Benjie really wanted to be able to see. Moltres has